Hey everybody, back here with the Week 6 AIL matchup with David Scott G. D Gamage on Discord. And he has brought a James deck to the table with Sympathy, Nature, and Ceremonial. Definitely leaves a lot of questions as to what exactly the deck is going to be playing. I'm expecting big units just because Sympathy, Nature can do that. Frostback Bear, things of that nature. So I'm debating my first 5 here. Of course, I grab the bear as I would usually do. There is a risk of Guilt Link here. So far, I've been really aggressive in preparing against Guilt Link by first 5ing the Salamander Monk, and I have not seen a Guilt Link, and so I'm beginning to think Guilt Link is less and less of a thing. Obviously, I got Guilt Linked very hard in Week 1 against Matt Bowers in his Fallen deck and Koji. Obviously, Koji plays really well with Guilt Link because you can just put the counter on without taking any damage, so it enables you to bring Guilt Link on board really fast. I do have the Salamander Monk right now in hand. I've got the Skald in hand. I think I'm still thinking through this because I don't think I end up with this as my starting 5. Yeah, I'm back into the deck again. I think, it kind of depends on what you're trying to do. We are playing with the restriction to Massive Growth and Hydra, so neither one of us can put that in our first 5. I do have a Massive Growth in the deck. Yeah, it's a tough call because I could Ice Trap. It's very possible that my opponent could be playing Raptors and with James be fetching Raptors for his mounts. I mean, there's a lot of different things that my opponent can do with James, and Ice Trap may be really good for that. But I also just have like Frostbite and Fester to deal with a big unit if that comes up. And so it really comes down to whether or not I go the Skald Flash Archer route. And I drop the Fester, I go back to Skald, and I go with the Flash Archer. I'm not sure that's 100% accurate if my opponent's going to play 2 threats, but I think what I'm ultimately kind of landing on is if my opponent does play 2 threats, I can mark with and then kill with the bear, or mark and kill with the Salamander Monk if it exists. So we'll see how it ultimately shapes up as we go through the opening rounds here. This is round 6 of the AIL, so I'm currently sitting at 5-1, or excuse me, 4-1. And it's an opportunity for me to, if I win this game, play into Top Cut. I believe at this point, even if I win this game and lose in Week 7, I will be able to properly play into top 12. Obviously, winning here and then potentially winning next week gives me an opportunity to, or in Week 7 would give me an opportunity to play top 4, and top 4 does have a first round bye in the tournament.
My alternative wasn't entirely fleshed out, right? It was like, so I know I have to.
So we're gonna just see what comes out of this now. The main thing we're looking at is what does my opponent want to put on board to start? What's he going to show me? And what are we doing to counter that? So,
drawing 5. Let me just make sure again that everything is what I meant it to be.
So we're going to shuffle things up here.
Shuffle. One game AIL match I forgot to shuffle. I'm like, what am I drawing? Why is everything the same card?
And then we'll get this party started. So
you just pull the cards out and then you're like, oh crap.
This ends up being one of the most intense matches I've ever played. It is marred by a rules infraction. So while we're sitting here waiting for things to get started, was a little unclear on how Herald's Mark and Root Armor interact.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And neither my opponent nor I knew the correct ruling. My opponent knew the correct ruling, but in the moment didn't catch it, and I certainly didn't know it. So we got clarification post-match, but we both agreed that it probably would have not affected the outcome of the game. And so we felt comfortable with the final results of it. So we roll okay. One of the challenges is not rolling any dice, any of the power nature. So I go ahead and play the Frostbite, and then I double med. It hurts losing Molten Gold and Frostbite. I mean, having a second Frostbite on board just turns on a lot of damage and without needing dice fixing. So that's going to make my meditations much more difficult in this game. Fortunately, I'm not probably playing a mill deck that's going to punish that even further. And the double nature gives us a lot of flexibility for how we want to deal with threats my opponent plays.
Okay, what's the order I want to do this?
So we're going to see what he drops here in the early stages of the game. I think he has to do some meditation, if I remember correctly. We shall see. So far, the rest of the hand is really set up perfectly, and the sympathy is there as well. I will tell you that one of the things about this deck is the first 5, depending on the variation that you set up, you sort of end up with some extra dice. And I know you kind of want to
bring out
be pressuring that, but here's a Psychic Vampire. Obviously, we don't want to kill the vampire until we're out of cards in hand, because then we're going to lose key components that we want to put on the board. So we also don't want to give let our opponent just run rickshaw over us with a Psychic Vampire. It's kind of a catch-22. So I go ahead, I think, on this next play and play the Salamander Monk over the Frostback Bear. And I think the Salamander Monk gets a lot of wonderful board presence in this matchup that makes it trickier for my opponent to be able to go right to my face with some of his units. Obviously, if he ends up playing Bear, which he can, he's going to be able to go past and bypass the Monk, and the Monk is less powerful against a Bear if he ends up throwing a Bear down. So just kind of still not, we're still playing this kind of cat and mouse game here in round 1. Again, my opponent could have Ice Trap. Ice Trap really gets the Skald. He goes ahead and meds and meditates a Raptor Herder and goes to a Power Nature die. That pretty much all but guarantees that he's got a Bear. That's kind of what I pick up from that. He meditates a second time, and he takes a Ceremonial up. That tells me that he's got potentially Fester in hand, other things that a single point of damage is bad for. Well, the best way to play around Fester is to not put a big unit like Bear on field, and maybe the correct sequencing here, I think I'm going to play the Bear. And maybe this is, as I watch this game in retrospect, maybe it's better to show Salamander Monk here. But it's also something where my opponent goes, okay, now I have to deal with his Bear, because he could cast a Bear next turn and get board advantage. Obviously, the Psychic Vampire is still standing there. My opponent's got 4 cards in hand, I've got 3 cards in hand, but I do have a Skald to draw. So if he puts down another threat, like the Skald becomes very meaningful. We can still leave the Psychic Vampire up at that point. We just want to kill the Vampire when we don't have cards in hand, so we can let it sit there and do nothing right now. If he uses it, obviously that opens up a whole different set of windows, because I'm pretty sure that's an exhaustible ability. So we're just kind of waiting it out here.
Yep.
I had to pay for the Bear. We're not going to make the same mistake we made with Schmendrix. Just caught it when I was looking at my dice pool. Trying to keep a clean game here. That's the main thing. Obviously, we're all new-ish. I'm probably, outside of games played with Neil on stream, this is only my 6th competitive game of Ashes. So yeah, again, just trying to be really mindful of the things that you need to do in order to properly deal with your opponent and making sure that you keep a good game state.
I think I want to attack.
All right, he's going to go and attack with the vampire. And I think I checked the vampire here. Yeah, so it's an exhaustible ability. That gives me... So I took 2 damage. But now I don't... The vampire is not a threat for me to deal with at all. Like, I could just get rid of the vampire if I want. I don't have any need to get rid of the vampire right now. I also don't think he's put a board state down where I'm needing to feel pressured in any sort of way. So I think I can just main the Salamander book, which is what I do, and just end the turn. Let him make the decision. I kind of want to make him put his first unit out so that I can deal with that first unit through Skald Flash Archer. And then, from there, obviously he's not in Charm, so I don't have to worry about Golden Veil. He's not in Angelic Rescue, so I don't have to, or Divine, so I don't have to worry about Angelic Rescue. So I'm kind of in a really solid position to get value from the River Skald in just about anything he puts out.
Do a bear book.
So he's going to play a bear book and pass back to me. So again, not ready to play Skald yet. This is why we played the monk. Or this is why we played the Salamander Monk book last turn, is so that we can go ahead and spend a main action, not doing something that's meaningless, but doing something that is less than ideal, and that is playing a monk. So if my opponent's playing removal, he's still sitting there going, well, crap, I don't want to remove a monk. That gives my opponent advantage. I can still be threatening with the monk here because the monk spirit is an inexhaustible ability. So even if the monk dies from anything, at the end of the day, we can make another spirit. So
I think I will get a bear.
I can close the gap down. So here comes the bear. Bear is interesting here because, again, he's still got enough dice and he's got the right dice to play a Master Vampire. And I don't know if he's first 5 to Master Vampire, but, I also don't want to just let a bear run rickshaw on me either. So I go ahead and Skald. I draw off the Skald. Obviously, this is an insane draw to draw into the vampire, but we shoot the bear with the Flash Archer. And we have to meditate here. So, because we know we're going to have to play that, so we're going to meditate 1. It gets rid of our massive growth. So 2 sort of finishers are now in the discard pile that are problematic for us, and that is Master Vampire, or one Molten Gold and 1 Massive Growth. Those are both intended to be cards to help us finish the game. Obviously, Massive Growth on Bear, and Molten Gold for just direct to my opponent's face damage. What we have now is my opponent has to decide how he wants to play, and I don't know what his correct sequence is. I'm not sure what his final 3 cards are, obviously, but we have so many dice in this dice. This is such a dice efficient opening. Like, we're still sitting in a position where we can do a lot of powerful things on this current board, and I still haven't marked. I've got 5 permanents in play to his 2 permanents in play. So unless his other 3 cards are all permanents that would stick somehow, I feel really confident about the overall power and ability. So he's thinking through his move here still. I honestly don't remember. This game was so long, I don't remember from memory what he played in this sequence. So we'll just have to see what comes out of it. Yeah, he's still working through the maneuver. I don't know what his choices are. Again, I mean, I'm assuming
I am going to use Jame.
Okay, so he's going to search his deck for an ally as a side action. Which I think is fine. I'm assuming this is going to end up being a Raptor Herder. It just would be very powerful to be a Raptor Herder. But we'll see what he ends up getting.
And where is it? I will get Raptor Herder.
This is probably just the single best target to grab with James because you get 2 cards for 1 dice. He's going to play the Herder. He'll leave the Nature up, which is interesting.
And his friend.
It makes me worried that he still has like an Ice Trap, but...
what?
You grabbed my Massive Growth somehow out of my discard pile. I don't know.
So somehow when he was working with TTS, it grabbed one of my cards out of discard. There's the Raptor. Okay, so obviously that's a pretty big tempo shift in terms of permanence. We were just talking about permanence in play. My play is going to be the Vampire, if I remember correctly, but I think I also ping the Raptor away. Because it is the most dangerous of the two, and not giving him the Herder back right away means he can't use Ceremonial to take a life, get the Herder back, and then recast it with the Nature die. Again, I want him to force that Nature die out, and so it's very possible here that I just attack. I don't remember, again, such a long game, I don't remember exactly my output as I work through the different sequences here. Yep, I go ahead and attack. That's what I thought. I was going to attack the probably should have attacked the hatchling instead of the Herder.
I will block and counter.
Okay. So he blocks and counters. I take a point of damage on my Skald.
Side action will be...
And then, yeah, I go ahead and I think I remember I side action ping the Raptor. That way it's gone as well. And so if my opponent wants to spend a whole turn, take a life, and to recur the Raptor and the Raptor hatchling, I guess I'm okay with that. And it also means that I'm not facing one of the big 3-cost units because it would... Well, he could still 3-cost me. He could still 3-cost unit me. So that's probably a misevaluation. But, he'd have to definitely meditate into it because he's not sitting in a position, I think, where he can really pressure that.
I'll put my own Salamander book down.
Okay, so he drops a Salamander Monk.
And enter.
Okay, so I think at this point, I'm ready to move forward with Vampire or Bear. And I think I go ahead and move forward with Vampire. Like, I'm going to show the big threat that is the Vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see how he responds to it. Okay, so we're still working through things here. I play Vampire, pass back to him. I think ultimately what he ends up doing is playing Vampire into Root Armor, which is an effective... I want to be really clear. It's an effective way to stop my Vampire from just one-shotting his Vampire, knowing the current rules. But based on this given board state...
do the same.
I can still just play Bear and kill his Vampire that way. So even if I mark the Vampire, so he goes Vampire into Root Armor, leaving no cards in hand.
Herald adaptation. We'll see. My standard first.
And again, end of the day, like I said, there's very little. I think that it changes from an outcome perspective. Because if I attack his Vampire and he doesn't counter, I can just tank his vampire attack with Herald and play Bear and then attack to the vampire. If so, I mark because I think again that the way the interaction works is the vampire is going to attack, deal 6, be prevented 1 from the root armor, and deal 5, which would kill the vampire. My opponent says he understood how the interaction worked, but he forgot that the root armor.
So you did actually kill me.
The root armor gives +1 life, and so I would have done 4, leaving the vampire with 1. It would have still been marked, and again,
for some reason I thought that was
the difference here is that Bear would have, instead of doing 2 damage to my opponent this turn, the Bear would have attacked the vampire and killed the vampire. So
not the whole deck.
He's going to meditate 1. That's to bring up the sympathy die, and I think it's so he can make a salamander.
Yeah, I think you outplayed me this round.
And I suppose his vampire could have lived through that exchange under the circumstances of he could have defended with Herald on that, and he would have gone in with a vampire with 1 life on it, and but I think I take no, I'm not top around here. So, but I still think because the marks on that vampire, he can't favorably attack with the vampire and not take some damage from my vampire defending. So, obviously, it would have been trickier, and it would have certainly had an impact on round 2. But whether or not it would have outplayed round 2, so yeah, I defend with the Herald here, take the 1.
I attack the vampire.
Herald will tank it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, then I didn't exhaust my monk. No, I'm totally screwed. Oh well.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and
So again, obviously it has an impact on the game. Whether it affect the outcome, I don't know. But we're gonna move on from it.
Monk will attack vampire for 1.
Okay, I take that on me.
Okay. Your turn.
Yeah. Okay. So he lets the vampire stand.
And then Bear will kill the vampire.
So
can't spawn
yeah,
an exhaustion token.
That's why I put all those other weird tokens.
So we had to use the bear to kill the vampire instead of attacking, but
refresh.
Okay.
Well,
I think that's fine. End of the day, we're still sitting on. He's got 3 permanents on board now. I've got 7 permanents on board.
Recover, then remove exhaustion, then exhaust.
The vampire is left with 1 life on it. But I feel like we have a lot of tempo. My opponent's going to have to play around. So even if we don't roll particularly well, we can probably play out of it. We're going to have a hard time, again, with frostbites in this game being meaningful. It's just going to be a long game. There's just no way around that. And I think having vampire down early and bear down early, if we were going first here, and I roll double power nature, that's always good, because that's kind of what I want my dice to be with a molten gold. So I think there's a few other things. I have to meditate to make the ice trap work. And I can't play ice trap, molten gold, and Pain Shaman. That's something that can happen in this deck from time to time, is that there's not enough nature dice to play a hand where you get a 3rd nature card in your 5 cards. But you just have to decide what is the best nature card for your given circumstance. The thing that would be important here is still, because I have a marked, he had a marked vampire with, we just trade vampires, right? In this round, he's going to choke me. That'll prevent casting on another mark.
Plus exhaustion.
And I take a point of damage.
Am I going to meditate?
One thing we're not in a hurry about is Molten Gold. So if we had to use a nature power dice to ice trap, we could. Crescendo would have been a good out for him to kill the vampire. The fact that he goes back to a single ceremonial, again, makes me worried for Fester.
Deck, let's go one more.
Alright, so Hammer Knight. He's shown me a Hammer Knight now. He's shown me a Master Vampire. So I know that he's playing a bunch of big units. I think Harold plays really well into big units. Because he went double ceremonial, it makes me think that maybe he's not on a Fester plan, but I mean, it's still a risk. And because the vampire's got 1 life on it, it's probably still the best play to just attack my opponent with vampire. And that way, if he can kill the vampire, the vampire got value this turn. It's a tricky situation.
Alright, let's draw a card.
So we're going to get Sympathy aggressive here. Because we don't have a bunch of Sympathy cards. But I do now have another Skald. So I have 3 Sympathy dice left. I have 3 cards that cost Sympathy, Shared Sorrow, and Skald. I kind of like playing the Pain Shaman here. Puts a reasonable body on the board. And I could heal the vampire directly. I don't think I do. I think I decided to give myself the life. It's just extending James's life total. So the James extension now is 17 for the turn. We kill the Salamander Monk and make a spirit. So it's like...
The other monk. Yeah. I want to grab from the right place.
It's not letting my opponent...
what the heck? Whoa, okay. Sorry. I tried to undo it, but it just...
That's okay.
Messed things up further.
It just flipped everything, so we're good.
Okay.
Alright, so...
All those tokens were not on anything. Those were...
Right. Those were all I hadn't exhausted thing.
Okay.
That monk dragged everyone else straight to hell, yeah. It seriously did, Matt.
It's when I'm drawing from my discard, when I search, it's like up in your corner, and then I guess I'm inadvertently selecting things on the board. But, okay. Does that finish your turn?
Yes, that is my... Because I did a side action, main action, so...
Okay. Dice got messed up, dude.
Correct. I know this dice is not for sure because I know I didn't have 3 powers.
Okay, so
did I flip your dice too? Jeez.
Yes. I don't know what the rest of these were. I'm sorry.
You can re-roll all if you want. I mean, I have no idea. It's not. It's
I'll
my
just re-roll.
fault.
I know for sure the natures were like this, so I'll try to keep the game state as close as possible, and I'll just re-roll it.
So I remember the nature die, but nothing else. So
I sometimes just click.
This actually ends up kind of in my favor, I guess. Unfortunately, the TTS mishap flipped all my dice.
Yeah.
So I ended up being able to play Skald without meditation, which I wouldn't have been able to do.
Now, I guess. As good as we're gonna get.
I didn't have any part of that, unfortunately. So I mean, this is just kind of the nature of TTS. Things get messed up. It'd be no different than if somebody bumped the table and your dice rolled from that. If you don't remember what those rolls were, then you have a problem. I don't know how my board got flipped like that, but there's Hammer Knight. Okay. So this is where I have some fun sort of plays that I can make here. And I can sort of take control of the game a little bit. I don't want to get rid of the Molten Gold, but I also don't want to lose the Skald because I can still play Skald this turn if I spend a Ceremonial die. But I can also recurse Skull from Ceremonial, so maybe the correct play was to leave Molten Gold in hand and play Shared Sorrow into the Skald and then get back the Massive Growth.
I don't know how I just brain farted on that.
I know I debated this a couple of different ways, because I can mark the Knight.
I don't mind losing at all. I hate when I lose.
But I can't mark the Knight this turn because of the choke. So I don't remember what we do here. I think we attack into the Knight for 2 with the Skald.
Standard fast first 5 was actually been better than what I did.
I don't remember if Knight has. I think we preemptively do it. So yeah, I mean, I'm just looking what's in the bin again. So I think I'm definitely on the Shared Sorrow thought train here. That's where I'm at right now as I'm watching it, and I think that's where I'm at in game as well. Main thing is,
let's meditate 2.
Yeah, we're gonna double meditate. Again, we need to get ready for Molten Gold. We lose a Shared Sorrow. We're
Shared Sorrow.
We're starting to lose a lot of depth in the deck for finishing the game. But if I can kill the Hammer Knight, then the bear can go in for 6 through a massive growth in this current bear board state. And I have ways to kill his bear if he plays a bear. Like Master Vampire is just brutal on opponent's bears. So, again, just something to sort of work through here is, how to play around this. There's still a chance he could play like another Master Vampire. That's a thing, and we're gonna run out of sort of tricks for a Master Vampire right now. But we'll just have to see what happens. I'm just working through like how do I want to deal with this Hammer Knight, and I think the best way to deal with the Hammer Knight is still, but I got to keep, yeah.
Let's use this die.
I got to spend 1 there.
And Anchornaut and
Ping.
for 1.
Do I ping the Hammer Knight? Is that what I do? Yeah, that's what I do. Okay, so I think it was just I'm just going to pass out, right? Like I'm going to pass out of it, see what my opponent does with his Hammer Knight on board, and then make a determination because I don't have to kill the Hammer Knight yet. I have like a huge board of units and creatures. So like there's a few different things I can do there, and it's just a matter of him choosing. But it also just allows my vampire to trade with his Hammer Knight at this point, and I get a heal 1, and the vampire dies, but that's not the end of the world because I can still make a bear this turn. I can still Shared Sorrow another threat. I mean, there's so many different ways to play this that there's probably no right or wrong way to play it. I guess I'm still trying to hold on to my Molten Gold, and I'm not gonna be able to play Molten Gold and Ice Trap, so it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen to the other, and it depends on what my opponent decides to do. So he's spending 3 dice again. Looks like we're playing another vampire.
I will get my own Master Vampire.
Yep. All right.
And I'm gonna meditate 1.
Meditating away a vampire. That means all 3 vampires are in the bin. He's obviously ceremonial, so that means he can get them back. There's not much I can do about that sort of interaction in the game. I kind of got to put him on the defense now, I think, at this point, right? Like I have to go, okay, attack vampire into Hammer Knight, kill Hammer Knight. Vampire attacks my vampire. Either I defend it with Herald and keep my vampire alive, or I let the vampire die, his vampire, and he heals 1. And then I can have like Scald, because I've got 2 Scalds in hand, kill his vampire, and still have a good board. And actually, I can just go ahead and play. I'm going to play the Shared Sorrow here, yeah.
And play Shared Sorrow.
Good.
We're going to pitch Molten Gold. We'll do 2 to the Hammer Knight.
Yeah, I'm on Massive Growth thoughts now.
We'll return a Massive Growth to my hand.
Okay. Shared Sorrow is a main action?
Yes.
And decide not to play the Scald at all this turn, it looks like. So I ping away. That forces down the vampire. I can't play Molten Gold. I ultimately decided Molten Gold wasn't going to happen. My Shared Sorrows are in the bin, so 2 Molten Golds are gone now. I only have 1 left, so there's only 3 damage left in the deck from that perspective. So I'm definitely going to have to get this win out with Bear, Vampire, and Frostbite, which is kind of tough. Not going to lie, it slows the deck down substantially to do that. So he's got a Vampire. He's got to decide if he's going to attack with it. He risks that if he doesn't attack with it, that I can just potentially just kill it. Like I can go. There's a couple of different ways to approach beating this vampire up. So
I want to eat your master vampire.
Okay. I will counter and do 3.
I counter. I let my vampire die. Put 3 on his vampire. Let his vampire exhaust. With 3 dice still up, I mean, he can't play another Hammer Knight, so I think that's where my thought process is.
Shaman will attack your vampire for 1.
But I can just kill with the Shaman, yeah.
Just a normal attack, right?
Yep.
But it forces James to defend it. And in doing such, I now have free reign on the vampire. So he spends 2 dice, play.
String mage.
And so here's a misplay on my
He
part.
will take a wound token.
Because if I ice trap the mage, he can't take the wound token away from the vampire.
Skald will attack the vampire.
And I can't block that, so.
And then I would have been able. I could have just held on to the massive growth till next round when I'm top of round, and been in the same position where I could have just swung with 2 bears for 8 instead of 6 here. So it's a little bit of a misplay to not ice trap that string mage, particularly because the string mage requires a fairly significant investment in dice to get it done. And I don't have a way to play bear and play massive growth. So I think I got a little off on this round and didn't play as well as I could have, and I paid the price for it there.
The Skald?
The Herald will tank the Skull, the Spirit.
And who wants an exhaustion token?
With 2 life remaining, it's problematic. And String Mage is problematic, especially with Recover 2.
I will put it on Monk.
Okay, so he String Mages the Monk. I think that's probably okay. Like, I actually felt like Monk was sort of clogging my board, and both the Monk and the Anchornaut were clogging my board here.
Let me think about whether I want to do a side action.
I still think the best course of action for me is probably yeah, it's tough. I probably should go ahead and like.
Would you let me? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I couldn't ice trap the mage because it's 3 life. That's why I couldn't do that. So it's an interesting board state. String mage is a particularly challenging component to deal with. With Recover 2, not being able to mark it.
So that I remember what's there. If otherwise, I can look at my notes. But this will be quicker.
Okay.
So he's checking his deck. He has permission to do so. I allowed that to happen. Basically, he's like, it's just faster than me having to check my notes and see what cards I still have left in deck and those kinds of things. I agreed. We're already at nearly 40 minutes into this match, and we've got a long ways to go before we're going to complete.
Yeah, I'll use James. I messed up on the ordering here, but I will use James to get an Anchornaut.
All right, so he grabs an Anchornaut.
I will play the Anchornaut to kill the Monk Spirit.
And he shoots the Monk Spirit with the Anchornaut. Obviously, shooting the Anchornaut or the Monk Spirit takes away a little bit of our board presence and a unit that I would have had available.
Oh.
Because we just killed my monk. I mean, I can.
I didn't use a main, I guess. You're right. Okay, you're right. I messed that up totally. Okay. So I can't do that. So I guess I did a side action, but no main action. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so my main action is Frostbite.
Okay. So his main action is the Frostbite.
Apologies.
You're fine.
Yeah, so he couldn't do the Anchornaut piece because he'd already side action that turn.
So I undo the life I just took.
Yes.
Yep, so we reset the life, get the board state back. Go ahead and massive growth the bear here.
Ooh.
So I'm looking at trying to get through. So my opponent only has one die in hand, no cards. So he can ping with the Frostbite, but end of the day, like that's all he's going to be able to do. So by playing massive growth onto this Frostbite, or excuse me, massive growth into this particular board state, we're guaranteeing 6 damage into his PB. Because the String Mage can't block the bear either. So I'm just trying to flip the script and put my life total above his life total. I think I put a fair amount of pressure on him at that point. And part of winning games is putting pressure on an opponent, and in doing so, you force them to make play mistakes or think differently about their plays. It's easier to make risky behaviors or risky plays if you feel like you're leading the game. So it's my opponent's turn. He's thinking through. I'm not exactly sure what, because I don't think he can play a bear.
I'll just use Frostbite on the Monk Spirit.
So he goes ahead and pings the Monk Spirit down, gets what he wanted out of the Anchornaut play. So now we're really left with the only move is to attack with bear. And I don't see a big reason to draw here. With no more dice, like drawing a card doesn't really do anything for us other than, I guess, cycle the deck if we wanted to. But I feel like holding on to that power sympathy has meaning and value as we move into the next round, especially holding River Skald. Because it's one of the dice needed for River Skald, so I only have to hit one other dice color, or one other dice side, now on 3 dice, instead of trying to hit 2 on 3, or hit 2 on 4, so it's just a little bit easier plan, but I do go ahead and draw here. I'm surprised, actually. Oh no, I play a monk. That's what I do. It's just replacing the board state. Again, really putting in position to see how it works out in this quasi-bear mirror. He has more 3/4s than I do in my deck.
I will... We'll attack the Salamander Monk.
Okay. I will counter.
So he attacks, kills the monk.
You said yes, counter, right?
Yeah, I do have to counter there.
So now I'm just going to, because I can't kill the...
Salamander Monk will attack.
I can't kill the String Mage, but I think I make a play mistake and think that I can. Yeah. Yep. And so I just make a massive mistake here. I could have gotten another point of damage. I just, for some reason, thought the String Mage had 2 life instead of 3.
For 1 life. If you want, I'll let you undo it, since it's the same round.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
And he was going to let me take it back, but I felt like...
I'll pass me.
at this particular stage of the game, it's really on me for not checking the life total before I make that decision. And you have to learn from your mistakes in order to not repeat them. So learning from your mistakes is making suboptimal plays, and that's just what that was. And then we get a massive bunch of basics. Basics are really going to hurt us here. Just in general, because
randomly on its side, I wasn't sure what to do about that.
You're really in a position now where, like,
I'm just gonna
because I don't have extra frostbites,
sure if I shuffled after last time
I just can't use like 2 of my dice in just for that. I do obviously have the double consume soul, so like favorably removing opponent's board position right now.
You go first.
It's something I can do and get life back and refresh the mark, so I can double removal here. Technically, I could triple removal if I have the timing and sequencing correct with my opponent's plays, but a lot of that will depend solely on what he's doing. I think best action is to meditate here, just watching the game in post, but I don't remember what I do here. I'm definitely thinking long and hard about it. I'm going to play the Skald. Helps me draw a card. I'm just digging for that other Frostbite, and another Fester is really rough here. So we're going to shoot.
Let's do one to the monk.
Shoot the Salamander Monk here. I think that's fine, the Spirit.
Okay.
We don't want the Spirit just running around. I have the ability to mark, use a Skald to kill the String Mage, and I do meditate 3 here. 1, 2, and 3. So Skald,
4,
Pain Shaman, and Crescendo 4. So then Consume Soul. All right. So we're getting low on deck. Obviously, we have to consider how we're going to get damage through. We have room for 1 more unit on the board, which is a bear. We need to be able to play the bear. I want to threaten Molten Gold. I don't have the Molten Gold, but I want to threaten him with it. We effectively do that with the double nature power-up. Got 1 Molten Gold left in deck. We got 1 Frostbite left in deck. I think we're out of Shared Sorrows. Can't get the Massive Growth back. We're a long ways away from victory.
And getting the bear.
So he's gonna flash art for the bear. Just hard cast Skald into Flash Archer. That's pretty awesome. I'm not sure if he drew a card. Yep, there he did. Okay.
Do I have a side action?
Okay.
I will meditate 1. Running low on cards.
So he meditates, gets rid of a root armor. That would have been really problematic in the late game.
I'll meditate another.
It would have probably forced me to have to consider getting back a Master Vampire. Obviously, the brain is bleeding here, burning through a lot of different scenarios that my opponent can play. I mean, 4 cards up means 3-4 factories for days. Double consumed souls with Hunter's Mark means that I can deal with them. Both Skalds up can deal with them. But it's not a simple play, and it's being really reactive when I'm running low on cards, and he is not. So one of the risks we have is fatigue damage. Yeah. Okay, so we ping the mage for 1.
Okay, main action will be...
Yeah, we're just going to fester the mage away. I think that's an appropriate play. It does cost us 2 dice to do it that way. and obviously we quit threatening, but we do get to throw out the Consume Soul, which allows me to heal 2. So I think we're in pretty good shape overall for that. I mean, again, we're sitting on 6, 9 permanents in play to his 4. We have to probably play Bear here. The good news is the Monk Spirit can walk into the River Skald. But I feel like by removing the String Mage, we put enough pressure on the game state that he has to consider playing a unit here.
I would like a bear.
So he makes a bear. Not unexpected.
Do I have a side action? Not at the moment.
So I have a lot of different approaches now. Like, I could just make the same play, ping Fester, but I feel like I want to keep a bigger threat on the board. Plus, I have the Consume Soul, so I can still mark. I have to do this in a different order. I think I catch myself.
Okay. Do I want to counter? Sure, I'll counter.
Okay.
So I don't think I'm ready to give up the mark yet because I think that he's got at least a 3/4 still to play.
The other side?
No side.
I didn't have to give up the mark though because I could have marked, killed with the Skald, consumed soul, healed and gotten the mark back, and still been in position to fight a 3/4 that comes up. And I would have been able to do that still with the nature die available. So probably also a misplay here on my part. When you consider it, I think if I'm going to trade Skald for Bear, I want to kill the Bear, and I would have still been able to keep up a nature ping for the Fester. So I still would have had another out into his big threat, and he's not going to be able to play. Well, that's why. He's got 6 dice still, so in theory, it's potentially possible that he could play through meditation 2 3/4s. I think that's sort of where my mindset was at, is if he plays 1 3/4, I can mark it, kill it with the Skald, and then turn around and consume soul, get my mark back.
I will play another Frostbite.
Okay. The Frostbites are going to pressure on my 2/2s. He's going to kill the Salamander Monk no matter what. So I have to use the Monk here.
Monk Spirit will attack the bear.
Okay. I'll take that on James.
Okay.
Oops.
So he tanks it with James, which is to be expected, but now if he kills the Monk, I at least got a use out of it.
No side.
Lots of thinking going on. I mean, all I can do is extend my life total because of fatigue damage becoming a part of this game at some point. If I can't finish the game before fatigue damage sets in, it's a real problem. So there's only a finite amount of actions I have left before we're going to draw the last of our cards. And we don't really have a good way to do 10 damage right now. So I'm checking the bin again because I'm looking for would-be potential answers. Again, both Molten Golds, Shared Sorrows. I mean, there's just a, the deck's going to run out of answers at some point, and when it does, the question is, how are you going to finish this game? 10 life is a long ways to go. My opponent's still thinking hard, though. I feel like if there's a 3/4 unit in your hand and you got 3 cards remaining, and if you have more than one 3/4 unit in hand, you got to start playing those because you got to start forcing me to respond to them. And if you don't, and you just frostbite here, and you frostbite into a Salamander Monk and pass, like I continue to get to put pressure on the board in a manner that is very difficult to overcome. So I think the best play for my opponent is if he has a 3/4 is to play that 3/4.
Sorry for being slow.
The issue he's got is I can see he's only got one dice set up for that right now. I think you can play Hammer Knight into this. I don't think you can play Hammer Knight into this without meditating. You can definitely play Master Vampire into this without meditating. So if he has a Master Vampire, like you just have to play it here.
I'm gonna play a River Skald.
All right, so he's gonna scald me.
Draw one.
Yep.
Interesting. I'm gonna pitch Rising Horde to get your River Skald.
So this is the first time that the board state has shifted in a manner that requires me to consider what to do next. And I'm going to mark a Skald.
Attack it with the Pain Shaman.
And then the Shaman's going to attack the Skald. He can counter it, but it won't kill the Shaman, which is the point.
So I take 2. I have a reaction to the Skald death here. I'm going to play Consume Soul.
And then I Consume Soul to remove that. Heal my last point of damage. And I have the mark back set up. So again, now you can only play 1, 3, 4, and I have mark. I have the ability to play bear.
I will get the Pain Shaman with Frostbite.
I'm going to kill the Pain Shaman, which is fine. We got our use out of the Pain Shaman. So, board position-wise, he now has permanent control over me. I mean, he's got more permanents than I do. That's traditionally a problem.
Turn.
Okay, let's mark the other Skald.
I guess because he didn't meditate, I'm not worried about a 3/4, but this could be a mistake, but I'm going to shoot the Skald with the Frostbite. It means that I can still play Bear into this. I can still kill his Bear with Fester. So I'm just looking at how to maximize my dice, I guess, in this scenario. Probably still would have been better to play Bear. But I guess the Skald was still up. So I risked the Skald just attacking into Bear and then me like having to stand Herald in front of it. So again, this sort of delays the timing to force his 3/4 onto the board. And if a 3/4 comes onto the board, then I can go ahead and ping it and fester it. I sacrifice the bear to do that, but I think that's okay.
That won't work.
So we'll see what he does here. I mean, my opponent knows the bear is not living no matter what. I'm sure he understands that, but I don't know if he understands how the different outs will function for me. I don't know if he's expecting fester or not after I already festered him once this round.
Just looked in deck, so I'm shuffling.
We're still sort of waiting. He's got a lot of different options. 2 cards in hand is a ton. My guess is he can't play both cards. Maybe he can. Since the assertion is discard pile, I also start to think that he's considering using the ceremonial ability to get back a unit. I'm just not sure what unit he would play. He could get back the psychic vampire, I guess, and then meditate to play it. But again, that's going to be 2 turns. And so the risk he takes in that is I could just pass main. Obviously, I don't think I'd want to pass main, but I think that'd be really, really bad for me to pass main at this particular point in the game.
I will get a fire archer back.
All right. The fact that he grabs fire archer with the ability and takes a point of damage tells me that he does not have the 3/4 in hand right now.
Taking 1, and I will kill with frostbite.
All right. So the frostbite buys the main action time.
I take that back. I'm going to do 1 to herald with that.
Okay.
Apologies.
Okay, so he decides to switch the target to herald. I go ahead and play my bear.
We're gonna play a bear
because if he plays the flash archer to deal 1 point of damage to me, like the bear just bypasses it, so I don't have to worry about the flash archer right now at all. And so we can turn the tide here and basically be top of round with my opponent only having a flash archer on the board.
I will meditate 1.
Yep.
A fire archer.
Or fire archer, not a flash archer. I apologize, but I think y'all knew what I was talking about there.
you for 2.
Bear goes, smacks for 2, takes him to 7. Fire archer can attack here. He'll get another point of damage in with the fire archer because I'm definitely not gonna let any of my board change hands. But I also just have the fester for the bear still before we end the round. Lots of decisions apparently for my opponent. Still, I'm not sure what the decision really is. I mean, you can just freely attack here, right? Like, you don't want to attack Herald because the Anchornaut will just step in front of it, which would be really bad. So you just attack one of the units, like the monk, yeah. And Herald then steps in front of the monk, save the monk. Like it's a good play.
Fester your bear.
Fester the bear away.
wasn't the way I prefer to handle that, but that's just how it worked out.
I thought you probably had that since you weren't doing other things, but I thought that was. Oh.
All right, pass it back to me. I pass back to him. So he's going to have first action for the turn.
Oops. Let's recover. Ah.
Roll a little better here. Not super great, though. I know I'm going to turn on the Frostbite. Have the Crescendo. Basically, now the trick is getting Bear through.
What do you do about these dice and their angles?
Getting second Bear through, take him to 4, take him to 3, Molten Gold would finish the game. So we have to sort of work through that. But we go to Bear 5, and then Frostbite, Molten Gold. Frostbite, Molten Gold will get the job done. So it's all going to depend on what he puts down here. And then I can Crescendo.
No, this is the part of the game that, like, you have to be super tricky about meditation and such.
Yeah, for sure.
And then after that, I don't think there's enough speed on his side to finish the game. Because then I'm 3 main actions away from win. So we're this is just what this deck does really well. It gives you lots of opportunity where your opponent has a small board and you have the ability to get around that board. And then when you're around that board, be able to take Phoenixborn or take and put damage directly on your opponent's Phoenixborn's face. And then when you start to get down around that 5 health range, you're not really safe any longer against it. All right. Opponent's thinking through his move. I can understand the trepidation because the wrong move could be paramount and detrimental to the death of the PB. But even if he plays a big 4 cost unit, which it looks like he's thinking about, right? Because we're talking about spending a ceremonial. And so if you're looking at that, you're thinking 3-4 units coming into play. We're going to be able to eliminate the first 3-4 unit with Crescendo on a mark. And then we're going to be able to push even further into the damage realms of killing things. So yeah, I mean it's going to be tight, and as to be expected, this has been a great game. It's just going to really depend on what he puts down here, or what he attempts to do here.
Oh.
The one tricky part about this particular scenario is that I have to meditate twice still, which is going to require me to meditate books off board. So I do need to try to set up the board with things that I want to do. And if he puts down even 2, 3, 4s, I still get around it. But it's not obvious that that's what he's going to do.
I will summon a bear.
Yeah, so he's going to take a safety route. I would call this a safety valve and bring a bear out. If he summons 2, 3, 4s, that's 8 of his dice, and so that's all he's doing, basically, probably. But I still think that I need to stay on the path of how to kill something, and because he plays the bear instead of a 4 cost unit, I'm able to Crescendo without Mark yet. And I discard the Freezing Blast. That will kill the bear. I get in for a 2 free damage. Now I can side action still. I don't side. I guess I'm going to hide it. I think that's probably a play mistake. I should take... Oh, I know why. Because I still want to get activation use out of my bear. Because I can play a bear still. Still get Molten Gold off. And still play double Frostbite. So, like, I can just go bear, summon bear, meditate 2, then go...
I will get a Salamander.
And the Salamander I don't care about. Again, the reason I don't care about the Salamander is because end of the day, it's a 1/1 that the bear bypasses. So if I was giving my opponent a lot of like kill choice stuff, I think Salamander's really great. You've seen me not cast very many Salamanders because I never ended up seeing a Guilt Link. So I play the bear, get second bear, and now I don't meditate yet. Could have meditated. I don't, though. I think I'm going to see if he plays something that is going to put up a defensive wall. If he does, then that's when I can go ahead and make the meditation and play Frostbite and go. So we prolonged the game a little bit by being a little safer. Like I could have just gone ahead and gone Frostbite and then gone Frostbite, meditate, kill with Molten Gold and not played the bear. But my opponent then still thinks I'm just pressuring bear only. And because I'm not showing the double nature symbols, he knows he doesn't know if I have the Molten Gold or not. So we're just waiting to see what he's going to come up with for an answer here. I think there's a couple of different routes that my opponent can go here. A lot of it depends on cards in hand. I think that, you know, he has a lot of opportunity to pressure my board and do some powerful things, but it's going to come down to choice. And I think the game is pretty much at this point a foredrawn conclusion, but there may be still some outs that I'm not thinking of even as I watch this game back.
Okay, I am going to attack the bear, and as a reaction, I will Crescendo.
So he's going to kill my bear. So again,
and kill my monk that's attacking. So
by killing my bear, what that tells me is he is thinking that I am solely on a bear plan to win. And so he's thinking, okay, bear gets me to 3, Frostbite gets me to 2, and we're going into another round.
Did I discard yet? No, I didn't.
So he did no damage to the bear he targeted but he discards a Molten Gold.
Knowingly. Hold on a sec. I don't think I have a side action, but just I don't.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna play side action for Frostbite for my main. And pass to you.
Yep. Still don't want to show the Molten Gold yet. So now I can buy time by activating Frostbite. Activate Frostbite. And then come back and side action, meditate away the 2 books, and Molten Gold for the win. So I think the Crescendo was a tricky play. And I think in a lot of scenarios I'd be very good, obviously. If I didn't have the Molten Gold, it would have prolonged the game. And who knows what the outcome would look like, because it's not like I have a super strong board at this particular juncture. I definitely have to be considering like drawing back into River Skald, which obviously just what the River Skald does is just give me a 2/2 body. I mean, there would still be some play left in the deck, but the plays would be far more limited. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it's the correct sequence. So we're waiting on him to make a decision again.
Okay, I'm going to attack the bear.
Okay.
All right, he's attacking the bear.
Yep, I'll just let you do that.
I think he just wants to kill the bear.
I'm gonna main action.
But I'm just going to main action a Frostbite.
Mm-hmm.
Pass my turn. I've got a very clear path. It's a 3-action sequence path. If he heals, it blows the whole thing up. But I think he's trying to kill bear, so I think he might Flash Archer. And if he's got a heal, we're definitely going another round. And
probably.
The only thing that's good for me is I have top around and Frostbite, so I can just ping him to death at that point. So the heal would be potentially problematic, but not necessarily the end of the world. I think I can survive the turn. Even if he plays a 3-4, attacks me directly for 3, I go to 10. I would suffer 4 damage, go to 6, and then I'd win the game.
I'll use this die to kill the bear.
So the fact he's still trying to kill bear here.
And I guess if I'm afraid you have Molten Gold, I will at least get another blood point. 1 Frostbite to you.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's pulling a blood point for the tournament purposes.
The game?
Yeah, well, I can't finish you, right? Because you're at 4, but I'm going to meditate both of these.
Yeah.
So we'll do that, and then I'll Molten Gold you as my main action to take you.
Yep.
So that takes him to 1.
Blood point, then you can get another blood point.
Leave up the other Frostbite. So I go ahead and do this. This is probably a turn too early, but I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. He knows that his only option is to get blood points.
Blood point. I don't think I can do more than that. Yeah. Okay. I will take my final blood point, and good game.
Yeah, good game, man. Put up a heck of a fight.
Okay, so that wraps up the game. This was the week 6 matchup with David, and great opponent. End of the day, the Herald deck does pull it through. Total blood points actually ranks up at 5, but we did effectively heal at 5, so he dealt 10 damage to us. That's about the most anybody's done to this deck in all of the play that I have had with it. So, obviously, great deck from David. Great fight. James is a heck of a PB. And we will be back soon with our Week 7 AIL matchup. And I appreciate everybody watching, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
When I had 2, like instead of doing 2 to it and just killed it.